Yo, what is up, you rascally scallywag recruiters? This is David Stephen Patterson here. On my right over here, we have my brother from another mother, Neil Lebovits, and then we also have the always hunky Chris Wessell.
On your left.
Welcome, guys.
On your left.
Hey, by the way,
Yes.
this is episode number 8 of the Headhunters Live, and today we're going to be talking about hiring, specifically if you're a solo recruiter hiring somebody new, maybe your first employee because you want to take advantage of the market, or maybe you're a recruiter looking for a position yourself and to find another agency to work with, or if you're an established firm and you want to take advantage of the market and hire superstars that you might not be able to otherwise. We're going to be talking about that today. But before we get into that, though, guys, do me a quick favor. Make sure if you hear this, make sure you comment live down below. If you're watching the replay, comment replay. And do me a favor, please comment, show us some likes, some loves, whatever. Show us some emotion because that is how this show goes viral. So that said, guys, Neil, Chris, how you guys doing today?
I am good. How about you?
Yeah.
Oh, same old, man. Busy. And actually, I'm really excited for this show. And the funny thing is, we were all researching on YouTube, trying to find some videos of other maybe trainers, whatever, talking about hiring. And there's not a lot out there, at least not for hiring agency recruiters.
It seems like on the other side of the coin, there's advice for those interviewing for maybe recruiting jobs, but not a lot of content on you're hiring your first recruiter or like even best practices in hiring a recruiter. Thought that was interesting because Neil and I looked, and so did David.
We perused, as you would say.
Yeah, it's really hard. Well, here's the thing too: is that one thing I've always noticed, which is I think it's funny and it's kind of ironic, but so I don't know about you guys, but have you ever noticed that recruiters who may be great at placing people, recruiters are the worst recruiters for themselves. Ever notice that?
Look, it's the shoe fixer, right? The shoemaker doesn't have shoes. The accountant has the bad books. That's an old story, David, right? Why would it be any different for recruiters? Absolutely. Well, talk about pipeline, like people that always need to get good talent or hiring the first person or hiring someone, all the things that you try to avoid your clients doing. I think that's such a good point.
Oh yeah, we do that. I remember I had that with my firm where like all the advice I would give clients is like none of the advice I would follow myself. Like, in terms of like defining the role, in terms of identifying like the right metrics for them and how to manage them and set them up for success. When it's you're like, I just need somebody in here. Let's do this.
Right. What's in it for the marriage? What's the right fit both ways? All those things.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to this as well, as that as recruiters, at least for the majority of recruiters out there who do well, they're not really technically they are recruiting, but what we do is we're private investigators. We hustle up candidates, we find them, we try to really get it selling on the front end, getting them interested and get them into the process. But we're actually not, for the most part, most recruiters are involved in our clients' recruitment processes at all. And as long as we close a deal, that's great. They may last 6 months, they may last a year, as long as they go past the guarantee period. We don't care. At least most recruiters don't. And so I think because of that, they go into recruiting for themselves with that mentality. They don't really have any talent acquisition experience beyond just what they see their clients do. I think that's a big part of it, because when you think about so for example, let's say you're a solo recruiter. They say you went independent. And you're out there on your own and you've got a good amount of business you want to start hiring for yourself. Well, we all know you have to create an employee value proposition, right? For your clients. But unfortunately, you are a solo dude working off your kitchen table, kind of a janky website, no brand, no supporting systems. And you want to hire someone on commission only. And it's like, okay, any recruiter worth of salt is going to work for an established firm.
They wonder why the person didn't work out.
Or if they can actually function in that vague environment you've given them, they might as well just hang out their own shingle. What's the point? Right?
That's a huge one that's going to permeate, I think, throughout today. You have to find out if you're going to give them and be in a full desk position, then why won't they? And at a certain point, you're setting yourself up for failure unless you have that all thought out. That's like the obvious part.
100%. So a lot of it comes down to what's the value proposition that you have. And so the way I think about it, at least least for me. And by the way, I come from in terms of my background, I was heavily influenced by Jeff Kay and Kay Bassman, and then from there, Sanford Rose, SRA, and they have this sort of like rainmaker style of organization where. Let's say so the way they have it, which by the way, this sort of system could work both as a solar recruiter and within the context of a larger firm. But when you look at your practice, if you're a solar recruiter and you're billing, you've got clients, you're getting clients in, you handle all the accounts, etc. One of the worst things you can do is actually try to hire somebody else like you.
Yeah.
Yourself. Why would they go to work for you? Now, granted, it makes sense why would they go to work for maybe a 50-person boutique brand name firm where they know they're going to easily do 400 or 500K per year, but and for you, when you've got no brand name, no nothing, why they work for you? So way I look at it, and what they taught me was, well, hire somebody junior, start with an admin, or start with maybe a junior recruiter, somebody's going to handle like a lot of the initial screens that normally would take up a large part of your day, and then you're free up to do more marketing, more business development, more client management. You've got broader recruiting bandwidth, and allows you to bring in someone junior and train them up and eventually get them into selling. Right. I think from an employer value proposition, I think hiring someone a little more junior and bringing them up in the business and letting them recruit helps take care of that, because now you don't have to justify why would a successful agency recruiter who consistently bills every year, you don't have to sell them on working for you, right? Because these are issues that a lot of solar recruiters have. So
I followed some of that model for a bit when at the last firm that I had for about 10 years had 3-4 recruiters at any given time. And most of what I did was kind of train them from scratch. And I went through some learning curves, right? And by the way, David, I want to point out that you mentioned about like progressing eventually into sales. Now that's a common path, like that's prescribed in a lot of organizations, but it's also important to recognize that that may not be something they ever want to do, which is great because that could be a long-term winning proposition. And if they don't want to sell, but you may be able to hold on to that resource for longer, because if they can sell, like, why keep working for you, right? And so I remember that I kind of went back and forth with, okay, we need to my partner and I at the time, we had both been experienced recruiters. We knew what we were doing. We just got out there. We built, a ton between the two of us our first year, and then we're like, okay, it's time to start hiring people. And part of it, the hiring more junior was driven by budget, but also not even just junior, but just I think, in my experience, trying to get someone to sell for you is far more challenging than to get someone to handle the back end for you. Because if you think about it, if you've had any measure of success as a solo recruiter, you are the rainmaker, right? And at times I remember in the past, I'm like, oh, let me hire some junior, like some salesperson to set appointments, whatever. That doesn't work, because I get business because I'm the brand, I'm the one that they want to work with. Delivery on the back end, I can plug people in and out of that. Because that's another nice thing. If you change over recruiters behind the scenes like that, that's something you can easily like cover. If you lose a salesperson, that's like, I think, more visible. But anyway, my point being, like, first you have to figure out, like, what do you want them to do, right? If you want to have them be, like Neil said, if you want to have them be a full desk, what's the point of coming to work for you? Like, I get it. You need someone, but why should they come work for you? Which, by the way, does that sound familiar? Because that's what we say to all of our freaking clients when we're hiring for them, and we want to know their employer brand. But I have found that as soon as you realize like what you're personally good at, and in my case, I realized, okay, I'm the one that has to be selling. I have to be the face. I have to be the client contact, and I can carve out the recruiting piece on the delivery side. And you're still going to want to talk to the candidates before you present them and stuff like that. Just thinking about how you want to break down the work and thinking about how sustainable it is. Because again, like, I think if they have any sales skills, they're going to hang out a shingle at some point, because they're gonna get some confidence on them. But if they don't ever want to sell and they just want to recruit, you may have a good long-term, mutually beneficial situation. Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
No, I'm just totally. That's an amen. They're going to both of you are saying it needs to be avoided. I don't know anybody that's successfully in that small. If you're a small mom and pop, which is everyone really that's watching this. It's going to fail. They're going to leave you. Bottom line, I think that's the case. And I'm going to say, I like where David's going and where you're going, and that's the most success I've seen online with people. If you're going to hire a commission owner, like you said, full desk recruiter that's going to come in, and I'm going to teach, like, come on, what baggage are you getting? And I'm going to say, be careful. And one big point I want to add with all this is when you're interviewing these people, the focus has got to be, well, I'm going to come back to some thoughts on it because David has a bunch of things he wants to cover, but I couldn't agree more. And you've got to come from a different angle because these people are going to leave. The reason they left their last company, that's what I was going to say, is the same reason they're going to leave you. I was always considered the bear at interviewing. People would always say, Neil, you're so difficult. I had the lowest turnover of employee attrition, as they call it globally, everywhere. And the reason is a leopard doesn't change their spots. The best predictor of future behavior is the most recent past behavior. Don't let anything else fool you. Okay. The halo effect, everything else you're doing. They left their job hoppers. They're going to leave again. They haven't held a job in 6 months. They will leave you in 6 months. They left that job for money. They got in a fight with the owner. The same thing's going to happen. You're fooling yourself any other way. That's my wisdom as the boss and being a big employer for a long time. But
so the halo effect is interesting because I know that if you go into business for yourself, if you go solo or you start your own firm, you're in essence an entrepreneur. You're a recruiter, but at the end of the day, you have an entrepreneurial spirit. And what I found is that people have an entrepreneurial spirit. We have the spirit of like, let's build the airplane, let's jump off the cliff and build the airplane on the way down. Like it's just what we do. We're dynamic. We do things on the fly. And we always think we can turn everything around. Like we're so confident in our abilities. And so we hire somebody in, as you said, leopards don't change their spots. But what happens is you hire somebody in, and oftentimes, and any manager, especially from when I'm watching this, can probably relate to this, where you believe in somebody more than they believe in themselves, and you keep them on way too long. You don't manage them correctly because you think that you can get them to turn it around. Like you have that special spark that you can get, or you can actually spark that in somebody else. And the most effective managers know that you can't, right? At the end of the day, you have to bring out the best in your people, but you also have to find the best people to bring the best out of. And you really can't just stick lipstick on a pig, right? And expect to get anywhere. Now, so I actually learned this from Jeff Kinney's organization. This one specifically from Karen, the president of SRA. And I remember this, and I learned this years and years and years ago, and I love this. And I started using this myself. This was a speech, not a speech, but just a conversation that you give to somebody who just started, or who is starting. So you're hiring them, and you're setting expectations. And one of the biggest things when hiring somebody, whether you're a recruiter or full recruiter or junior recruiter, whatever it is not setting proper expectations. Because what happens is they start, and everybody's excited. They're excited. You're excited. We're all excited. And then you're not managing them like you should because you're excited. You don't want to be the bad manager. You want to be the cool manager. You want to be the cool entrepreneur. But they need management. And so what happens is if their numbers are trailing off and not doing as well as they should, which that happens most of the time, even for people who are really good, you don't manage them. And then because you think they'll just turn it around, and eventually they never turn it around. You're waiting. You get resentful. And then the moment you say something, a month after you should have said something, they're surprised because they think everything's fine. Right. And it just doesn't work out. And so the speech or the talk is basically this. So look, imagine you wanted to run a marathon, right? You've never run a marathon before in your life. And you set this goal in your head in 6 months, or this year, I want to run that marathon. Well, it's tough. And so you reach out to a marathon coach, and that's me. I'm the best. I'm the best coach in the region on marathons. I build champions. I'll get you across that finish line. However, I want you to know that in our training, I'm going to ask you to do things that you want to understand. If I call you at 3:00 in the morning and go run hills, I need you to go do it because there's a plan in my head. You don't need to know the plan because I know the plan. All right. You're going to hate me. It's going to be hard. It's going to suck. But I'll tell you what, when you get across that finish line after that 26.2 miles, I'll probably be the first person you hug because I got you there. That's my goal, is it not to be your friend, is to get you past that finish line.
Karate Kid vibe, getting a wax on, wax off vibe.
Yeah. And so basically, the key in this is like, so in this case, I need you to give me permission to manage you. I need you to give me permission to manage you. Even if you come in hard on you sometimes in the effort to get you to where you want to be. And the moment you don't want to do it anymore, the moment you say, okay, I can't do it, tell me. No big deal. Right. Kind of like ringing the bell in the SEAL school or SEAL, whatever the hell week for the SEAL team, like ringing that bell and then they leave. It's kind of the same sort of scenario. And what happens is you actually set this up properly initially, and you basically gain their permission to manage them based on what they want to do, right? Which might be to bill $500K in a year or whatever it is, right? And using that sort of marathon analogy, I think really works because it sets that proper expectation.
So along those lines, I think that touches on a really important nuance that I learned the hard way 15 or so years ago, which is that you're now a manager. Yes, maybe you're the selling and they're recruiting and whatever, but you're also a manager. And I learned kind of the hard way over the years that, like, you know, I thought that the standard path for growth is you hire people and you keep growing, and that's how you scale, right? And that to some degree is accurate, but not entirely the only path. And I realized that I was, you know, I lucked out. My first hire just kind of thought like I did, worked. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm a good recruiter. Apparently I'm also a great manager. Awesome. Carry on. I started hiring more people, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? And why can't they be more like Pat or whoever? Right. And so then I was like this is, I learned, like, you know, I went to business school, at MBA, all that other crap. But like at the end of the day, like that's where I learned, like, holy shit, there's a difference between like being good at a particular thing, an individual contributor, and being a manager. And your thought process has to change, especially if you're currently still in somewhat of an individual contributor capacity. And now you have to layer in management.
Oh
like,
my God.
It's a different beast, and you got to make sure that this is something you're ready for. It's really different. And also it even goes back to, like, do you even need to hire someone? Right? Like, you want to grow, but like as Neil and David are experienced in areas like using VAs and automation, just like I am too. Like, you know, you want to grow, but does it mean you need to hire a recruiter? Does it mean you need to just carve out the busy part of your day to like a VA? Does it mean you need to integrate some automation so you can get more out of your day? And that'll only take you so far or whatever. Maybe you do that first, then you hire someone. But like first, like, okay, I want to grow. Does that automatically mean I need to hire someone? If so, that could be the answer. Now, okay, I am now going to be a manager, and this is a big leap for a lot of people.
So it's the why, right? So why? I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off on there too. I could come back to my point there, please.
We forgive you, Neil.
Oh, I'm done. Or yeah.
No, David. You're
I wasn't paying attention.
Go
ahead.
David, do you have something to say, or you want to continue? No.
Well, no, I guess something I'll say on that one is to follow up on Chris's point, to piggyback off of it. You're an entrepreneur, right? So you're a solo recruiter, you're an entrepreneur, you're not just a recruiter. And being in business for yourself, you've got to be adept at finance and sales and management and operations and recruiting and all these other different things. And you got to be the chief bottle washer, as they say. And that's one of the biggest things about entrepreneurship that no one really gets, is that you have to be all these things and at least be proficient in all of them in order to even survive, to get to the point where you can start hiring people in. Take over. Because look, if you're a medium-sized search firm, you're going to have somebody who does your finances, your accountant. You're going to have maybe somebody who handles all your operations and all that. But when you're solo, it's just you. And so part of that includes the management piece of it. And you got to be able to figure it out. It sucks, but it's the big barrier. It's the barrier. It's what keeps solo recruiters from ever actually building the search firm they want to build. Right. Is because of that singular reason right there.
Yeah. What do they want to build? Why do you want to hire someone? And as we've said, you have nothing to offer. So how are you going to hook them? So you can't do it until you're ready to hook them. Can you hear me, by the way? Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. Until you're ready to hook them. So what Chris is saying, there's so many elements of your desk that you can outsource. Through virtual assistants, you could outsource researching, you could outsource email marketing, and outsource cold. There's so many things that you can do. Okay, how do you get these people, figure that out, and get those levels scalable so you can fit other people into those in your own model? Make it the one that you're excited about, what you love, and then you're just going to do it at the point where you're the the rainmaker, as Chris said. You're the one that's doing the deals, and your desk then's going to be too busy because you're putting all your time on the deal making, all the time on bringing in the orders. And you've got this team that's now doing all these other things that you're able to scale. All of a sudden, you can't handle it anymore. That's when you can, that's when you have value now to bring in that star, that other person, where now I've got something here. Look at what I've built that you plug into for the right person. All right. So it's what both of you are saying. That just kind of, that's my top level view, putting them both together. I couldn't agree more.
It's like a step path to growth, right? Like it's a step path where like, okay, first you get more utility out of yourself and organize yourself. So you'll inevitably be billing more. So you're already making more money. So now you start to get even better. You hit capacity and again, just echoing Neil.
This is
now,
how an
if
MBA
you bring somebody on board, there's the value.
You're an MBA. I went to Stanford. This is how you would talk about it. You wouldn't just come in and do an old school thing that doesn't work. And let me bring in another person.
And boom, it fixes everything.
Cross the fingers.
You might get lucky. You might get lucky, but it's a real low percentage shot.
A real low percentage.
We have a question here from one of our very handsome listeners. Yerbal, love this podcast. Any recommendations? By the way, love this podcast. You have good taste. Any recommendations on hiring lead gen, biz dev assistants? How would you structure their compensation, etc.? So,
by the way, it's Yerbal. I wonder if Yerbal is short for Yorbalinda, which is always one of my favorite names. I think it's such a beautiful name. If it is, it was like a little Linda, little Yerbo. It's like a very strange name to me.
You're not in the You're not in the primaries. You're not running for office. You don't need to kiss all their asses.
I read it. I don't know if it is. It's a Yerbal. It could be nothing to do with it.
He's pandering to our audience already.
Listen, we have one person watching. If I'm not going to kiss her ass, who's are we going to kiss? Okay.
That's a good point.
Thank you for joining us today. We can actually address each viewer during this podcast if we want.
Just bring them in the call. Just hop in. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Come over to my apartment after the show for hummus and chishkis.
All right. So lead gen, lead gen folks. So that's actually so it depends on how you structure it. Like you can hire somebody who actually does real sales, meaning they go out and they prospect and then they actually run sales calls and then sign the client and then maybe hand them off to you. I think what a lot of firms are having success with nowadays is the SDR position, which is not quite that. It's actually just focused on the prospecting piece of it. Kind of like how let's say you're a practice leader and you hire in a junior recruiter to handle the pre-screen, all the screening and talking to all the stuff that can be done on the front end to allow you to then have more time for relationship build and get new clients, et cetera. Well, someone on the prospecting side as well. She had a comment here. Looks like it's your build name from Kazakhstan. But in terms of the
no, Kazakhstan. That's a really not just joking.
Okay, it's one of the stands. You got Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Turkestan, all the stands.
It's like the oranges in New Jersey.
Yeah.
David's like, let me finish my freaking sentence to Stan.
He's the one who put it up. He's flashing it, Chris. I'm not interrupting it. He's controlling the overlays, not me.
So lead generation. So lead generation and prospecting is time consuming. And so what a lot of firms are doing nowadays is they have someone junior, maybe someone who wants to get into a recruiting role at some point or whatever, and they handle all the prospecting. Actually, they're sending out the emails, they're making cold calls, they're leaving voicemails, and what they're doing is they're setting up appointments for you, the practice leader. Now, how you structure that or how you pay for that, typically for someone like that, you're going to want to give them a salary, right? You're not going to be able to get anybody to do that on a commission-only basis. Right, because they're typically more junior. You want to get them in on a salary, and you typically give them either. So what I've heard different pay structures. I've heard some firms paying on a per appointment basis if the appointment meets certain criteria. Mm-hmm. So they don't go book an appointment for you with a janitor or something like that, but they have to meet certain criteria, and they get paid on a per appointment basis, like as a little bit of a spiff on top of their salary, or it could be maybe a very small percentage of the back end deal. But what I found, again, most firms typically tend to pay out more on the front end, so either on a per like a per appointment basis. I've heard is a pretty common one. Well, what have you guys have you guys heard in terms of like say, or what advice do you have? So for somebody who wants to hire lead gen, that's my view on it. Right?
So in terms of the comp structure, And also this is interesting because I've hired for a lot of sales positions and dealt with a lot of sales organizations. So in a lot of cases, I've seen how it's broken out in other businesses and how they compensate even outside of recruiting. So I think that, the nice thing about when you give somebody who's doing lead gen, basing, having milestone based on a certain amount of meetings, or like the meetings being qualified, like that's something they can control, right? Because they can't control if you close it, but they can control how many meetings they set, because that's just going to be a function of how many calls they make, right? But I do think it's also, personally, I think that it is valuable to give them some kind of piece of the back end, because that will incentivize them to get even better meetings. So, but that's above and beyond, because that shouldn't be part of their goals, because that's not something they have control over. But I think it could incentivize the right behavior and like better meetings. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, it gets them involved, or it marries
They're
them.
invested.
Your business, it's investment. Yeah, they get, because if you pay them on the front end, for example, on a per meeting basis, for example, and maybe I don't know, every quarter they get a bonus based on production, maybe for their team as a whole, or something like that. So they get to share in the wealth. They get to, because that's also how you grow people internally, is you share the wealth. You let them participate in the company as a whole, because they got no reason to leave. And if you have someone junior who's really good and they develop, and there are some amazing recruiters who have started quite literally as interns at a company and just stayed with the same company. And then next thing you know, 10 years, 15 years later, they're a practice leader running a multi-million-dollar practice in the firm, because they're invested in the firm. They're never going to leave, because they grew up there. They first, lost their recruiting virginity in your firm, right? So much more likely to stay if they feel like a part of the family. Yeah, I went there. Sorry, guys. But yeah, that's the way I look at it. Well, let's actually turn topics here, because I also want to talk about if you're a recruiter. So if you're a recruiter and you don't need to hire, you need to be hired for whatever reason. Yeah, maybe the company you're with folded, or whatever it is, or maybe you're an internal recruiter and you want to take a stab at working at an agency. By the way, your ball says, well noted. Thanks a lot. You got it. So Neil, Chris, if you're a recruiter, if I were a recruiter on the market as of today, just got laid off, what would your advice be to me?
Is this in the context of getting a job in recruiting, period, or a job with like third-party recruiting? Because I feel like okay.
Specifically,
go ahead.
So I would be honest with myself, and if I don't have the skill set nor have really had the training, I would get the training from a boutique shop and or a regional firm or a larger one. I think we've all been through it. When we have, there's just so much you get from it. I think do whatever you can to surround yourself with a team. But it's the same answer I'm going to have. You need to know your value, specifically what you're bringing and what someone else is going to have to make sure it's there. You can't just be hungry for the first job. It's the same note too. There's so many personality issues, and I can't even begin. Why do you want to work for someone else? Is the question again, in a small capacity. I don't know.
It depends. Some people don't want to. They just don't. They want to be able to bill, make their money, and they don't want to worry about the overhead. They don't want to worry about the risk. They don't want to worry about. I get the point in terms of, when you're recruiting, eat what you kill. You kind of are an entrepreneur in a lot of ways, even if you work for somebody else. But at the same time, I think for a lot of people,
bottom line is a lot of people out there do have really neat things that they've been building. Right. Mm-hmm. And I would find that out. Know that you can go anywhere, and you really can. Okay. If you're good, you should have 100 up. Don't be desperate. I know people are, the market's coming out here. Neil, do you know someone? I am telling you, when I reach out to anyone, everyone is interested in talking to a recruiter, or a good one. Okay. But so anyhow.
So if you're trying to position yourself, and I know I've hired a ton of them, and I think about, if you're trying to position yourself for an agency recruiting role, and I say agency, just third party in general, where you're going to go work for one person or a big company, it is not enough. And I've seen this posted. It's not enough to just say, I know how to use all the tools. I'm great at recruiting. I filled a bunch of jobs. Congratulations. A lot of people have, right? What you need to be able to demonstrate is that you understand that even if you're not the one selling, you have to be producing, and contributing to the company's growth and contributing to the sales process. It's not just that you're good at finding people and you know how to use these tools and you know some plugin nobody else freaking knows about, but like that you can extract. Remember how we talked last time about extracting value from a conversation? That's what you should be talking about in an interview or even in your introduction to someone, is that when you get on the phone with a candidate or you interact with a candidate, you're identifying, or anyone, you're identifying opportunity. You're identifying whether this is a possible candidate, whether this is a possible lead for the company. Even if you're not the one following up on it, you're looking at things from different angles. You're entrepreneurial to some extent, even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur. I think that demonstrating that will set you apart. And I think that maybe some people leave that unsaid and they're missing an opportunity. But I think you're not differentiating if you just say, you know, I'm good at recruiting. You know what I mean? Like, show that agency owner that you're going to help them grow their business, even if you're not selling. Does that make sense?
Well, the best way to do it, I think, actually demonstrate that is an actual demonstration of what you can do. I mean, what do we do as recruiters? We not the
give me a
recruiters
job to work on.
Who post a job order or a job on the boards and then process people to come in. But I'm talking about like they hunt, right? We're headhunters, and so showing you can hunt. And so for me, the way I look at it is if you're an agency recruiter, start calling agencies, finding who the owners are, cold call them directly, email them, put them in campaigns, act as if you're trying to get them as a client or you're trying to recruit them. Like take the initiative and sell. And so, because for me, for example, I remember when I was running my firm, even times when I wasn't hiring, if I had someone reach out to me in a very strong manner as a hunter and intrigued me enough, oftentimes, I mean, I didn't hire everybody who did that, but it really made a difference. Like it got me interested in them. And so I think that's a big part of it. Look, at the end of the day, think about the dating world, right? When you're a young fella on the hunt for love and all the wrong places, as they say, and what shows the you could be a guy who's not quite as attractive, right? Didn't have the great job, etc. But you know what women find really, really attractive? Confidence. Is the ability to walk up and just start a conversation naturally and not be cheesy, but have the balls to walk up and even though you're probably going to get rejected, and start talking and be able to initiate a conversation, be interesting and show your personality and draw hers out, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the same applies if you're an agency recruiter looking for a job, right? It's the fact that you call that agency owner, right? And you left a compelling voicemail and send a compelling email. It's going to tell him or her like, oh,
this is how he works. This is how this person operates.
Exactly. So demonstrate it. That's the number one thing I think more than anything else is go out there and actually start recruiting for yourself, like start or selling for yourself, right? Put together campaigns. That's how you do it. And I think the crazy thing is so many recruiters don't do that. They fall into the trap of applying through the job portal and hoping they get a call back, right? No, take things into your own hands. Like, especially nowadays when agency owners are looking for people who can create business and hunt, to show them how you hunt. Show them how you hunt.
And even if I'm hiring you just to recruit for me and not even just sell for me, that shows me that that's how you're going to pursue candidates proactively. And like you're asking for referrals, et cetera. You're showing, like we talked the other day about like showing a potential client how you operate. It's the same thing. You're giving a potential future.
The opposite holds true also. So your behavior and treating it just like you would prep other candidates is super, super important, right? Incredible. Right? Oh, excuse me.
Okay, Neil, are you all right? You joking?
I mean, it's my coffee. I'm gonna have some more coffee. I'm only on my second cup. My coffee. I had a tragedy. I have a built-in coffee maker in my apartment, and it is officially gone. And I'm on instant coffee. It's not quite Sanka, but I feel like I'm drinking like Sanka. There's a Dunkin' and Star. I'm right in Manhattan, but I haven't left the apartment.
It's gone? Did someone break in and steal it out of your wall?
No, it broke finally. It was always kind of broken. It never worked. It's gigantic, but the brew unit's all damaged. It won't come out. It can't be like. It's a crazy repair.
New York really is falling to shit. You can't even get coffee now.
If only there was one or 50 city. Starbucks within 5 feet of you. Like,
what is this Starbucks that you speak of?
Starbucks coffee sucks, by the way. If you ever had the regular coffee, like their black coffee, it's always burnt. It's bitter. Like they have.
Well, it's not as bitter as Dunkin', like those savages in Boston.
Dunkin's not good either. Yeah. Like coffee sucks. Like that's
right.
why everybody gets the fresh.
Now we're really going to start polarizing people.
So if we digress, so I was saying these people have to. So your behavior also can work against you. You know, meaning. I recently was hiring someone, and if they're going to be a rep for us, they were so anxious about getting the job and following up too much and texting me on a Sunday, and they did the same with our COO, not getting the job. And so I'm saying the opposite whole, like you are auditioning, everything you do it the right way. Follow up, be that person that actually sends that text afterwards too. Do all the things. That's all. Mm-hmm. That's what I can add from my experience as a hiring manager.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%. Yeah. Don't be over needy, you know. And look, at the end of the day, if you're calling these agency owners, granted, if you get an interview and that might be the only interview you have, then you're then of course you're going to be needy, or at least you will be needy on the inside. But if you reach out to, over the course of this next week, 200 agencies and owners, you're going to be getting interviews. You'll get 5 interviews, 10 interviews, 20 interviews. What's going to happen is that you're no longer needy, right? And people love confident people, and people love others who are on them, or not who are on the market, but people want those who others want. That's a tongue twister. People want what others want. And if other people are vying for you, you become inherently more valuable, just given that fact alone. As everything else.
And if you're trying to keep your cool and not be too eager, think about this too. Like if you're any good and you're hiring if you're working in an agency environment where you're probably largely commission, or at least a good chunk of your income's commission, there's going to be plenty of situations where you really, really hope that this one person you found is going to be the one because you got nothing else. But you can't talk like that on the phone, or you're going to spook them, or you're going to blow it, or something. So treat that the same way, right? Like just like when you have that one person, that one candidate that's going to fill this, and you don't want to blow it, so you're trying to like keep your cool and not like inundate them or be up their ass. Same principle.
Well, let's talk about if you're an agency owner already. Let's say you're an established firm, right? Then you're an established firm, and you want to use the opportunity to hire, whether it be hired, maybe more junior people, in like a pipeline to your firm, or hiring, superstars, or maybe even bringing people with solo recruiters who want to work within the context of a larger firm. If you want to do that, I think some of the so I want to talk about that for a few minutes. I know that for me. A great piece of advice I got years and years ago from one of my mentors was basically where he said, take, say, $50,000 or $40,000, whatever it is. Take that and put that into a separate bank account, almost like an escrow, if you will. And that's your hiring money, right? So so in your mind, you've already spent it, right? That's your hiring money, hiring budget. And so when you hire, instead of hiring maybe one person, if they work out, hire 3. Or hire 2, whatever, knowing that 1 or 2 aren't going to work out. And what happens is you draw that money out of that special account. Whatever they bill goes back into the account and replenishes it. And nothing gets back into your general business account until that account gets topped up again. And so what happens is it keeps your hiring funds away from your general funds, right? So it kind of helps keep that barrier in between, so you don't go too hog wild. It also forces you to always be thinking about making sure your people are paying for themselves.
Versus or you're refilling that bucket.
Yeah, because it's very easy as an owner you got so many things happening. You're managing several people, and it's very easy to miss those things, right? Or just not think about it. Versus if you're paying somebody to have a specific account that's dwindling down, you got to figure out, I got to get money back into that. I got to get these guys productive. I'm going to run out of my hiring budget, right? And so as soon as they're productive, put that money right back in before anything overflows into your general, and it keeps you safer. So I think from just from like a financial standpoint, think about it in those terms and do that. That's a great piece of advice I got from a mentor many years ago. And he runs or he's had a lot of experience in building firms. So he's done this many times. So.
Related to that, but a slightly different twist on it. Actually, it was funny when we were like researching videos and trying to find something. I looked at some hiring salespeople videos to see if any of them were, made sense to show today. And, one of them actually comes to mind now, which was someone was giving advice on hiring salespeople. And they were talking about, and whether or not you're going to have this person do sales or recruiters or producers. So just, hire more than one person, hire like 2 of them, right? Instead of just one. And the thought process there was basically, and what you just said made me think of this. The amount of time you're going to spend ramping one of them up versus like two of them at the same time is pretty similar. You're kind of hedging yourself because you're not counting on one failing. Because if you think about this, if one of them fails, all the effort wasn't for nothing. Because if you just hire one person, all your eggs are in one basket, and it could be it could set you back. And also it could be just mentally like, challenging to be like, oh man, I got to start this whole process all over again. If you hire two of them and you get them started at the same time, worst case, none of them work out, but one of them works out better than the other. Best case, they both work out. And now you got a new problem, which is, okay, maybe I got to hire a recruiter or something like that. So I just wanted to add like that piece. That was one of the things I saw we were looking at. And I think, I think there's a lot of merit to that, because I could see as an individual out there hiring that first person, investing time in them, investing effort in them, and then a couple months later it just doesn't pan out. I could see that being like very detrimental to someone's just outlook. And I think if you have the capacity to hire a couple at a time, you can hedge some of that. And if you think about it too, like think about whatever base you're giving them, and like say you're drawing from that account, whatever base you're giving them. Let's say you're giving them out like a $50,000 base for like easy math, right? If somebody only lasts like a couple months or whatever, you didn't blow $50,000. You spent like a quarter of that, right? So does that kind of make sense? I mean, I think I've never tried it that way specifically, but as I listened to that, I was like, you know what? That's probably not a bad strategy for a solo trying to do their first hire.
Well, also, I was thinking about this too. If you hire multiple people, say 2 or 3 at a time, you're hedging your bets, obviously, and if everybody works out, then that's actually kind of a good problem to have. But secondly, I know from personal experience, you hire one person and you put a lot of time into training that person, and a month later they don't work out. It's not so much the money; it's all the time you lost, the time that you could have been spent getting new business or recruiting the positions you have, or doing whatever, right? Or hiring somebody. It's that time that you'll never get back. And that's a big one. So I think a lot of it too also comes down to not only figuring out, okay, how do I hedge my bets so I don't lose the time by hiring multiple people, but also how can I automate my training or at least semi-automate my training. So one thing that smart firm owners do, right, is instead of having the same training slides or training sessions, they bring everybody through and they teach them the business, and the owner does it themselves. They're taking time out of their day. It's what I used to do. It is record videos. Like a lot of these trainings you can do, just record the videos once. And so when people come in, you're still working them one-on-one, but then for part of the day, they're watching these training videos, right? So you can go out and spend your time going out and getting new business. And I think that's
probably something they should do it all the time now. Anytime you train anyone on any element of your business, I recorded every one of mine, and I use them as I scaled Boss. I use every one of them for new people to watch the old ones when we made new ones, and all sorts of things to get everyone.
That scales like crazy. Yeah, because that time-consuming nature that you're like, oh, I don't have time to show them how to do this. But if you take Google the time once while you're doing it, like a Loom,
That's it. Loom, Google Meets, Zoom, save the recording, categorize them.
And the best part is you may be doing a production activity anyway, and so you're just recording that. So you're not even taking time and energy to train. You're literally just recording what you do and then just handing it off. So sorry.
Now one thing I will say that is really amazing, and again, this goes back to the irony that as recruiters, we're our own worst recruiters, even though it's what we do for a living. And most search firm owners when they want to hire somebody, the funny thing is they will talk crap about posted on job boards and only work with active candidates. We work with passive candidates. We go recruit people directly. Blah 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 blah. Yet for their own positions, they'll post something up on a job board and they go and then go about their work and hope they get some good applicants in, right? As opposed to just like it were search, actually mapping out the 300 or 400 top recruiters in, let's say, your city, and actually creating an actual marketing or recruiting campaign around that and recruiting for your own firm. And in fact, to take it even further, if you want to continually have a pipeline, what I would do actually is just like with your prospect market. Let's say you're a finance recruiter and you work in Orlando, and that's kind of your little market, right? Just Orlando. So you probably have a few thousand finance managers, controllers, CFOs, et cetera, in your database that you're marketing to and your drip campaign and yada, yada. So you're staying top of mind, you're building your brand. Well, why aren't you doing that with the 300 or 400 or however many financial recruiters in Orlando, where you are getting their emails, put them on a list, running advertisements to them, making sure you're connected to them on LinkedIn, and building out your brand building to those people. So that way, when the top ones want to make a move, you're top of mind to them. Or when you reach out, when you're hiring, they're much more likely to respond because you're
David,
a
that
nerd.
reminds me too. Before we run out of time, I know we're getting there, but like, I wonder how many people out there on top of their mind and doing that is going to also engage a search firm. And you need to. And how many are going to say, oh, no, I would never. Like, you're selling the exact opposite of what you sell all the time. How do you not want to see the best talent out there and benchmark it and network and maybe recruit the friend of their friend that like, oh, my God. There are a couple of great ones out there. Suki that we had on the show, and there's a bunch of people that.
An interesting thing about that, Neil, too, is that strategy. Those people know what other recruiters are making better than anyone else.
Listen,
like,
man,
we all have our ideas, but we're in our own little bubbles.
I use recruiters for my company. There's people in our group that watch this podcast. I pay him a search firm. I don't want to, but damn well, I'll do it.
When I was working for Yo like 15 years ago, and I was hiring recruiters for various offices around the country and salespeople, at that point in time, I was so tuned in to what everyone was into, whether they're big tech systems or whatever, or small. I knew what everybody in town was paying. I knew all the comp plans. I knew everything because that's all I did as recruiters. Yeah. Now I have some experience to draw from and some anecdotes, but I don't know.
Right. So go into it knowing you're not going to pay the fee. You'll just do it for the recruiting game, for the free referrals that you get, for all the info. But it's a business decision. It's a business decision you'll make, right? You'll pay the fee if and only if you want to. If at the end of it, you said, I did all my stuff, what David just talked about, which is what made me think about it, David, why I cut you off there, right? Is just add it to it and do everything just like you would if you were CEO of a company or you were a consultant looking out. Oh my God. And if you get a candidate in there that's great, come on, who do they know? They'll start referring people to you. You want to network over time, just like the video. Meet the best people in your space. I can't believe when people come to me for a referral and I say, oh, I got an intro for you. Oh, no, thanks. I don't want that industry. I'm like, what? Talk to what, are you crazy? Get to know the good people. And if I'm telling you something, like, not that I'm telling you, just network, man. And this is the great opportunity and for free. Guess what? These recruiters are crazy. Want to know why? They're willing to do all the work for nothing. They're willing to do all the work knowing you're going to do everything in your power not to hire through them. They're going to do everything knowing that they're only going to charge you a fee if and only if you hire their person, and they're willing to not have an exclusive, most of them. Oh, yeah, you know that because you're on the show. You guys get it?
That's right. That's right. Well, now, I do want to say this. I'm kind of starting to wrap up here, but I do want to throw in a shameless plug here. But we were talking about hiring and obviously hiring human beings. But I've been doing a lot of work lately in AI, specifically in how you can use AI personas on ChatGPT to actually crank out content, create recruiting plans, create email campaigns, create blog articles, create social media posts in a fraction of the time, and that will outshine like 95% of copywriters out there. I just released a course. It launched this month. It's available immediately. I've been selling on a pre-launch. I'm extending the sale. So if anybody wants to jump into that, it is go to realdsp.me/blueprint, and it's 75% off. I'm going to open up again for a couple more days, and that's it. And use the code launch at checkout on that page, and you get 75% off and get the program immediately. All right. When I extend it a couple more days, somebody watching this, go right now and jump in on it. And if you want, because you can be a solo recruiter and have 3 or 4 of these AI personas out there providing massive leverage for.
Listen, I've used it in the real world. This it's the stuff's amazing. It's amazing. And David, what he shows you is having you step by step exactly what to put in to create these personas. David had it read my staffing by the book. David, you want to put that up there, by the way? Good timing for it. Oh, yeah. David had my staffing by the book. We'll come back to your blueprint because I'm plugging it. And it extracted my writing style. And David used that writing style to create a blog persona. And David gave us step by step what to pace with all. I mean, David is brilliant. Everyone if you're not experienced in it, this guy knows it for recruiting. We adapted it for, oh my God. Thank you. So back to you, David. That's mine for the book. But David, back to you in the blueprint, because it's really good stuff. Really good stuff.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. Well, yeah, and by the way, if you want the ebook, it's actually a great one. I've read it myself. Go to backofficestaffing backofficestaffing.com/staffing. And of course, for the blueprint, go to realdsp.me/blueprint. Use the code launch for 75% checkout. Chris, I know you usually don't have anything to promote, but if you have anything you want to promote, feel free to throw it in there. Although I know, you're a recruiter, so you don't sell to recruiters, but I want to throw that out there in case you wanted to promote anything yourself, just in case.
Nah, not this week, but in the near future, there might be a couple things to talk about.
Excellent. All right. Well, guys, that's a great show. I think, I think we're talking about on our next show. We'll come up with an announcement here soon. We'll be talking about our next show.
Or comment with your ideas, what you want us to talk about.
Your ideas. Very well, and take a look at some ideas as well. All right, guys. With that said, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Chris. And thank you most of all to you watching this. So please do us a favor, comment live, or if you're watching this replay, comment replay, and like it, love it, share it, help us go viral. And with that said, peace out, everybody. Bye.
Peace out.